let's talk about goal ideas. So, when I mean goal ideas, these are actual, like it could be a goal idea, it could be a project idea, it could be an action step idea, it can be a breakdown, etc. The terms are interchangeable. I know it can sometimes feel overwhelming. I had a one-on-one client one time who was saying how the concept of calling it a like a action plan, I was calling it an action plan related to her goal. And she was like, that doesn't, like, that stresses me out. I don't want to call it an action plan because that feels overwhelming. Can we call it something else? Yes, you can call it whatever you want. There is no right term. All of these terms are interchangeable. So at this point in the year, you probably have had a million ideas of things that you want to do related to your goals pop into your head. I have too. I know we're only 2 months into the year, but I am sure if you're like me, you've had a bazillion ideas of things pop into your head. I want to remind you that when an idea pops in your head, it doesn't mean that you have to act on it right now. You do not have to do it. An idea pops into your head. It does not have to go onto your planner. It does not have to go onto your to-do list right that moment. In fact, I highly would recommend that you don't do that you take that idea and you write it down somewhere else. You take that idea and you write it down somewhere else, not in an immediate location. 2 reasons. Number 1, you need to get it out of your head. It needs to not, like, don't say, well, I don't want to write it on my to-do list, so I'm just going to keep it in my head. Because either it's going to stay clogged, it's going to keep your brain clogged, and or you're going to forget about it when you actually do want to remember it. So you need to get it out of your head. But you don't want to do it right in that moment because you've already prioritized what that time frame looks like. Whether it's the day or the week, you have prioritized that time. Don't clog it up and crowd it with something that you just randomly thought of. So let's start by talking about what are the lists. What do I mean by these goal idea lists? So the first one that you can toss your idea onto is a next month idea list. So an idea pops into your head, and this idea fits in with your current quarterly goals. Now, right now, as we're talking, this probably doesn't, there is like the next month. This is probably not the best month for me to pick this topic because the next month for me is also one in the next quarter, right? If you do quarterly goals, the next month and quarter are all kind of one and the same. So let me backtrack and give you a better example when we did February into March. So literally the second I was done setting up my February goals, I started a March ideas list. And anytime I had an idea that fit in with my Q1 goals or something that had to happen in March, or just something you're excited about, I'm always encouraging you to have action steps and goals that you're excited about. Put it on the idea list for next month. It does not mean that you have to pick it next month. It is just the idea list. You're just putting it in a placeholder to revisit when you work on next month's goals. The next layer up, we're basically just like getting bigger and more vague, is the next quarter idea list, which right now is pretty much all I have. The next month doesn't exist because I've got to figure out my quarterly goals first and then break those down to even have a next month option. But the next quarter ideas are ideas that fit within your annual goals, but they're bigger than just an action step. It's more of a project. It would need to be broken down more. And the one thing I want to remind you here, there's no limit on this. You can't be like, well, I already have, 4 quarterly goal ideas and I don't want to have more, so I can't add any more. Again, no idea is a bad idea. I want you to just get it out of your head and have it down on paper. And then when it's time to evaluate, we can evaluate. If I'm being honest right now, I have like 16 quarterly goal ideas on my list. Am I going to pick all 16 for Q2? No, not at all. But I would rather have those ideas and have them there for me to brainstorm off of when I get to Q2 than to be trying to pick ideas and come up with more. And once I pick my Q2 ideas, the ones I don't use will automatically go on a list for Q3. Like they will automatically transfer over to a list. Now, if you don't do quarterly goals, then this is just an idea for future months. You would have an April ideas list or something that you're like, I would consider breaking this down further and maybe picking part of it for my April goals if you're somebody who doesn't do, again, quarterly goals. So now let's say you have an idea pop into your head that's even bigger than the quarterly goal, or it doesn't really fit in with your current annual goals. It's something like, I want to do that, but based on the annual goals that I've picked, I don't know that it's something I have time or capacity or resources for this year. Put it on next year's idea list. Now, it doesn't mean that at some point later this year, you might reference that and decide that you want to add it back in if you can't stop thinking about it. There's a reason that we reevaluate our annual goals every quarter. But I would rather you, especially this early in the year, try to not automatically be like, well, I'm going to add it into this year because there's so much time left. That's the trap that we fall into, is that we're like, well, there's still 10 months left in the year. But let's say we're doing our quarterly refresh in a couple weeks, which, by the way, if you haven't seen, I don't know where you would have seen it. I've told you about it. If you're in the community, you've seen it. I'm going to post the calendar on Instagram today. Next month, the quarterly/annual goal refresh is on a Saturday. So for those of you who have been wanting a Saturday call back in the community, it's going to be on Saturday. Anyway, not in my notes to talk about. What was I saying? Oh, I don't want you to get to the mindset of we're doing our quarterly annual refresh and you have a new annual goal idea and you're like, but there's still 9 months left. So I'm going to go ahead and add this in. You could do that, but keep in mind that unless you have more resources than you originally thought, adding something in possibly means you're going to have to take another annual goal off your list. So unless it fits really well within your annual goals, I would recommend going on a next year goal idea list. And yes, you can start a 2025 goal list in February. It's okay. Just because it's February doesn't mean we can't already think about next year. Again, going back to talking about writing them down, we're getting them out of our heads. We're getting the clutter out of our heads and we're getting those ideas down on paper. And that might mean that you've already started a 2025 list. I've started a 2025 list. And then the last layer is a lifetime list. These are someday goals. These are big dreams. These are vague ideas. And these are things that either you know for sure it's not going to happen next year for one way or another. Like there's some reason that it's not going to happen next year, or it's something that you don't know what the timeline might look like, right? Like I have purchasing a home on our like lifetime goal list. Right now it's not in our like immediate plan, but I don't know what the timeline looks like. So I'm not going to go ahead and throw it on the 2025 list. It's going to live on the lifetime list. Learning another language is on my lifetime list. What's the other thing? I think I have 3 things on there. It's the someday things. And once again, just because you're putting it on the list doesn't mean you have to do it someday. It is just a list of ideas. It's a list of options that you could possibly do someday. So these are the what's next month, next quarter, next year, and lifetime. Where are we putting these lists? So option 1 is on specific planner pages that are geared towards these ideas. And the Goals with Laken planner does have space for some of these. In fact, the only one it doesn't is lifetime. And maybe I need to add that in next year, but it definitely already has next month, right? If you have the Goals with Laken planner, there is a page for you to start brainstorming for next month. There is a page for brainstorming next quarter, and there is a page for brainstorming next year. It's at the very, 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 very end, but you could write things down on it if you want to, and you could pull it up to the front if you want to. So if your planner has space for these idea lists, that's where you could put it. Some other options of where you could put these ideas are in a notes app on your phone, which is actually where I keep mine, even though, yes, I do. Obviously, like I just showed you the pages. I love my Goals with Laken planner. But right now, in my season of life, it is so much easier for me to keep lists like this on my phone so that when ideas come to me, I can easily write them down without having to go searching for my planner, get to my office or whatnot. Now, I will transfer the ideas for quarterly and annual. I don't actually use that quarterly or that monthly ideas page anymore because, again, I do it on my phone. And for monthly, it doesn't seem to do any benefit for me to jot down those ideas, like to transfer them to a piece of paper before I transfer them onto the brainstorm. Well, from like the idea list page to the brainstorm page, I use the brainstorm page into the actual page, if that makes sense. If you use the Goals with Laken planner, you know which pages I'm referring to. So for monthly and for quarterly, originally I have them on the notes app on my phone. I will use the quarterly brainstorm page when we get to that. When I get to my quarterly refresh, I'll transfer it from the notes app on my phone to that page. You could do it in a Google Doc, kind of the same thing if you want that accessibility, if you want to be able to access it whenever, wherever. You could have a separate notebook. This is my goals idea notebook, and you could have it split out by category. That's one other thing I guess I didn't even include in these notes here. I think it is valuable to brainstorm by timeline. If you also want to brainstorm by category, you can do that as well. And some of the Goals with Laken planner pages has it like that, where it's also broken down by goal. There's no right answer. It is what works best for you. It could be just a notes page in your planner. Again, accessibility is key. If you have a planner that is your go-to that you always reference and you carry that thing with you everywhere, your goal idea page or pages could be just the notes pages on your planner. Ultimately, it just has to make sense for you wherever that is. And you can have different lists in different places. There doesn't have to be like, I have them all in one place or all in this place. It could be like, well, for the next month, it's actually easier for me to use the paper one and to have it out on my desk the whole month. Whereas for next quarter, I will put that on my phone so that it's kind of hidden away. Again, there's no right answer. What I want you to remember when it comes to these lists is that something is better than nothing. And I want you to just get it out of your head so you can focus on your current goals. I want you to not take these ideas and tell yourself, oh, I should be doing that. Oh, I wish I was spending my time on that. Oh, ideas are awesome and I want them to come to you, but I want you to go put them in their home, on their list, and then focus on the goals that you have set and you have scheduled time for. So that is all that I have planned related to this topic. Any questions or thoughts on the topic of ideas list? Is there something related to this that you struggle with that I didn't talk about? Anything that came up for you? Also, it's okay if you don't have ideas. I didn't say that, but like if you don't think of anything, that's okay too. I think you know that when I share things like this, it originally always stems from my personal experience, what I have done for me and what works for me and my goals. And then the next layer of that is what I have seen work for other people and what I have helped other people accomplish. And so I know for me personally, I have always had more ideas than I know what to do with. I've always had more ideas on lists than I could ever possibly complete given my resources. So I am coming at this from a place of like figuring out how to get those into homes and into lists and where they all would be beneficial for them to fall. If you're like, and I don't really come up with ideas until we get to that goal setting session and then I brainstorm, that's fine. If ideas don't come to you, that's totally fine.